Donadio, the writer and the political analyst. We welcome you. The Israelis say that the political level really had some commands to prepare themselves for the return of the war in Gaza. And Trump have direct conversation with Hamas. How can we read this?
I think Israel's stance is that Hamas has to disarm, okay? And once that happens, I don't think Israel will have any reason to go into Gaza. And I think once the hostages are returned, as Donald Trump is asking Hamas to do immediately, and once Hamas disarms and is no longer an armed group, I think that will move us closer to peace for Gazans in Gaza. And you will see, I think, the recommendations by the recent Arab summit led by Egypt start to take place in Gaza for Gaza's rejuvenation.
Yes, Mr. Perry, what we see now of what's going on. So, is there a deal of America isolated from Netanyahu? And we know that we are about to begin the second phase.
Yes, I mean, my understanding is there is a deal. We see that the peace is holding. We see that Gazans are in Gaza. They're not being moved out of Gaza. We see the unfortunate hold of the humanitarian aid from Israel. I think this is going to be temporary. I think once you see the hostages released, I think once you see Hamas start to disarm, things will change. This appears to be a pressure tactic being used by Israel currently right now. But we also have to remember this is an active war zone also. So there are many complexities. There are many behind the scenes talk between leaders that maybe we're not aware of. But I think based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, that the ceasefire will hold and we're looking for a positive result. And that really depends on what Hamas does moving forward.
Mr. Perry, Trump had this step with Hamas and some direct negotiations with Hamas, and Netanyahu really was angry and Tel Aviv was angry. So this is a step of America. Does it mean that the U.S. Has like a maneuver in relation to the deal in order to have some gains for Trump because he's known of that he is a man of business and deals?
Well, we know that Donald Trump's priority is peace in the Middle East. That is what he wants. And Donald Trump is going to achieve peace in any means he can. And that might be making some negotiations, through his U.S. envoy, Steve Witkoff, directly to Hamas. They have to talk to each other in order to find out what can be done to bring the peace ultimately to Gaza. So there has to be talk. I don't imagine Israel is going to sit at a table with Hamas and talk to them. So we are being used as an intermediary to negotiate and try to come to a peace. And, from what I'm seeing, this is Donald Trump's agenda.
Mr. Barry, there is a contradiction in what's going on. We find before the deal that there was like agreement between Netanyahu and Trump. They agreed and there was a lot of support from Trump to Netanyahu, and now we find that he does not support Netanyahu so much, and Netanyahu really has some decisions which are different from Trump's, and there are negotiations with Hamas.
Yeah, like I said, this is very complex, and Israel has its reasoning for what they're doing. They want an elimination of Hamas as an armed group. They want their hostages back. The United States overall wants peace. They want a safe Gaza, not only Gazans to enjoy, but even visitors or maybe even tourists from the Arab world to one day enjoy and enjoy Gaza in a peaceful way, maybe as a wonderful place to vacation or visit. So my thought process is that Donald Trump, we may not like how he does things sometimes, but he gets the job done.
Mr. Perry, about what place and what peace we are speaking about, and Trump really supports Netanyahu with all the decisions, and now he speaks about peace, and of course the human aids in Ramadan did not come to Gaza, and why doesn't Trump pressure Netanyahu more and more, like what happened before the deal?
Well, I think you see a little bit of pressure on Israel. There's not, unrestricted warfare going on at the moment in Gaza. If you ask Gazans, Gaza is better than it was now that Trump is in office. So I think Trump is using pressure on Israel to keep Israel from maybe doing more war zone tactics, if you will. And that is why we have a current lasting peace right now. But Hamas has to cooperate too. There has to be an end to this hostage situation. I think the world agrees. And Hamas has to give up power. Even the Arab Summit says so and agrees to that. So I think once that happens, there's going to be a lot of good things moving forward for the Palestinians in Gaza.
But Mr. Barry, Hamas today has scored, which is the hostages. It will not hand them over except with some conditions, and it will not really submit to Netanyahu's decisions. And you spoke about Gaza, and Gaza is better than before. Do you think that it is better than before, and we don't find that the aids coming in, and there are talks of the return of the war, and the West Bank as well, and a lot of decisions related to displacing people?
Right. Gaza is better right now because it is not an active war zone. There are not bombs being dropped right this moment. I agree with you. I prefer humanitarian aid being brought into Gaza. So it is not better in that retrospect, like you mentioned. We also mentioned hostages. It's not okay for any group to be holding hostages and use them as collateral. By international standard, it is not okay that Hamas is using hostages that they kidnapped from Israel as collateral to keep their existence. We have to remember that this is evil and it's wrong. So I don't see how peace is going to continue when Hamas is going to demand certain things while they hold hostages, which is against all international standards. So I think Hamas needs to release hostages. I think they need to give up power to the Palestinian Authority, which would be the rightful authority for Gaza. And then you will see a lasting peace like probably we have never seen before in our lifetimes in Gaza for the Palestinians.
Yeah, the idea is clear, Mr. Donadio. You were with us from Maryland. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.